And I think a lot of people are afraid to learn because that means they have to admit they don't understand something. How do you get better? How do you learn more if you don't admit that you don't know? So it's kind of like drop the ego. And I think also drop the attachment to an outcome. I think a lot of times people are so focused on an outcome that it blurs their decision making during the path.
What's going on, STR Nation? If you've been considering getting into boutique hotels, you are in for a treat. On today's show, we had Kim Herrlein on with us, who up until this point has been in the high end luxury STR space. Started with zero, got it up to 20 something STRs, very high end, large groups. And over the last 2 years, she made the transition into our first boutique hotel. So today we're going to dive deep, ask her a lot of mechanical questions on what was that transition like? What are the main differences between STRs and hotels? Uncovered some of her biggest challenges, which E pointed out on actually getting them launched and what you need to watch out for. So, without further ado, let's jump into the episode with Kim Herrlein. All right, Kim Herrlein, welcome to the show. We were joking offline about making sure that I pronounce that right. Is it Herrlein, Herrlein? Anyway, I'm excited. You've done some amazing stuff in the space and really excited to dive into this episode with you. You've done some really cool projects, some high end stuff, and now you're in the hotel space.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here. I
Absolutely.
am kind of, as I was mentioning, still really getting the hang of this new boutique hotel operation. It's very, very different from what I had come from with the single family residences, especially since they were large estates and the booking windows were so much further out. And this is just so much more fast moving, but it's really exciting.
Love it. And we will definitely dive into that. I definitely want to talk to you about that. But let's go back to the beginning. How did you even get into real estate? What were you doing before this, or were you always in real estate?
I think ever since I was a child, I loved real estate. I know it sounds funny, but I can remember traveling with my uncle who was into flipping homes at the time. And I found in a journal when I was 11 years old that was speaking to the chandeliers in this place and, the curtains. And I thought, what 11-year-old is really noticing these details? And I thought, how funny. And then when I roll forward a little bit, anytime I was in a new city or a new place, a destination, I'd pick up the real estate magazines and I would just spend my time, kind of perusing them. And I just loved design and I loved looking at the potential for all the real estate. And I myself got into it probably in like early 2000s, started buying properties in Lake Tahoe, some really beautiful homes and like many of us that were involved in real estate in those early years in 2000s, had my you know what handed to me in '08. And I kind of left that time frame with a little bit of like, I'll get you. I'm coming back for you. And as it turned out, like all things in life, they don't always seem as clear at the time. Sometimes we say, why is this happening to me? Instead of why is it, it's happening for me. And I'm about within, I'd say, a couple of years after that, I was given an opportunity to go take a look at a house with a friend who was a pretty big real estate investor at the time, and he had the notion of he had just stayed actually at a home in Palm Springs and was doing the math and was just like, I think I just paid this guy's mortgage. And so he started, he kind of got that into his mind. And he's a very fast moving person as far as like the way he does things. And so he happened to say, hey, maybe you'll come meet me out in the desert. I was living in San Diego at the time and take a look at some properties. And I said, sure. And he really didn't know that I had some background in interior design. And not that I have been officially studied design, but I had been working with my first mother in law with interior design, helping her operationalize her business. And I got to see the most fabulous textured walls and silk curtains and a $200,000 children's bed. Like mind blown. Like who affords this? Who what kind, why almost. But because of that, I got to be really close to design. And so the combination of I was in a mindset of saying yes to opportunity and I had this background all of a sudden we made a perfect match because he really wanted to move quickly and I knew how to create style and on a more so of a shoestring budget than the $200,000 bed. And so we started with the first property was a 5,000 square foot property across the street from Coachella Festival in Palm Springs area. And it was only 4 bedrooms. And what we realized is we like to travel as a friend group in groups of 8, 10, 12 people and thought, why wouldn't others? And so we were in, this position where there was a 5,000 square foot home and only 4 bedrooms. And we started knocking on walls and recognizing that we could easily move some walls and add some enclosing walls for the porches. And we were able to actually renovate that home to a 10 bedroom, 7 bath. And that was in 2015.
That is no small project.
Nothing like
Wow.
jumping in, like, full, head in first, actually. Feet
Pre-market crash, were you flipping houses or doing buy and hold? Like,
buy and
well,
hold, yeah.
okay,
It was high-end luxury rentals as well. So, I mean, it was primarily in the Lake Tahoe area and ski areas and Kirkwood at the
okay.
time.
And
Yeah.
so this was like pre-Airbnb, pre-STR. You were doing buy and hold long-term rentals, high-end long-term rentals, and then you dove into a pretty high-end STR for your first go around and did a heavy reno. Did you have the construction background, or did that business partner have construction background, or how'd you guys execute on that?
No. We actually did, builder owner, found someone to kind of help us out with different subs and manage the project. I mean, it's crazy to think about it now. And actually, we just did that again with a boutique hotel. So obviously, we're glutton for punishment.
No, I asked that because a lot of listeners may be thinking, "Well, that's great. She probably has background in construction or whatever," but a lot of people don't, right? And I talk a lot about it's not about figuring out how to do it, it's figuring out who can do it, right? And getting the right people on your team, whether they're a partner or just the right contractor that can execute on your vision to bring that dream to life. So, I wanted to just bring that up again because if you're sitting here listening going, "Yeah, that sounds super cool, but I have no construction background or anything." You don't need that. You just need the right people that do, and you need the vision for what you want for the project.
Absolutely. I think the vision is a key piece. And sometimes people are trying to jump the gun on that, to get to the end result. But the reality is that niche made us so much money. Because if you really think about it, it's kind of I tease about this, but it's like the Nashville hot chicken. Like, it's so popular in Nashville, but no one had it in California, so they just brought it here, and now it's just wildly popular. It's just hot chicken. It's just chicken with hot sauce, right? But it's the idea that something that does really well somewhere else, and like I said, we had traveled as a friend group for a while in Mexico, Dominican Republic, and enjoyed our vacations immensely because of that, the experiences you create. It's very different than a hotel experience. And the fact that we jumped into that and then created this space where we recognize people don't need large bedrooms, right? You're going for two, three, especially our market here. So for most of you that may not know, the market in Palm Springs is about 2+ hours, obviously, depending upon traffic, from Los Angeles and about 2 hours from San Diego. And so we have a really strong drive market. And so that actually lends itself to allowing large groups to gather, right? Because you don't all have to pay for flights and all the things, right? And it's a little bit easier to just kind of to do a little bit more last minute than something like flying and securing a home overseas or something. So taking that model from a 4 bedroom, that home, it was like a 4 plus bonus room, whatever, into this 10 bedroom and making the room small, but each one has well, most have an ensuite, and making sure that the living spaces stayed large, right? The kitchen stayed grand, that where you spend your time. We also had the luxury that it's on 2.5 acres and has a pool and a pond, and you're looking at it actually right behind me. And it's just a gorgeous property. We had really, lots of work with there, so that was good. But I hope that answers the question. Like the idea that you take something that no one else was doing, right? People were scared because of hosting parties, that parties would, create this more people would create a bigger problem. And so we were early adopters to things like obviously Minute. decibel readers, we have virtual assistants that have been doing security for us for years. Just recognizing that there's a way to handle that concern, and that really became our niche. We just kept finding properties where we could add value by adding bedrooms and bathrooms, and we just did that for about 7 years.
I love that.
Yeah, I'm loving the story so far. And before we kind of pivot into the hotel, one of the things that has come up for me in listening to you and your story, it doesn't really sound like you don't run on fear in any way, shape, or form. So there is very little fear that comes through in your story and how you relate yourself, which I love. We
That's
all
awesome.
know, right? But it's true. Would you say? Would you say that
Yeah,
that's a good read?
I have abundance written here as a reminder.
Perfect. And it comes
Yeah.
through, right? It comes through in your stories, it comes through in your attitude, it comes through on the projects that you do, how you do them, and also how your design of your hotel, for example, because I haven't seen your Airbnbs, but the hotel I've seen, there is no fear in how exquisitely bold the place is, right? It's very like just in your face. And you're like, I know it's gonna be great. I think we all know somebody that got hurt in 2008. And I was just with somebody recently at an event, super successful real estate agent, and he's like, "Well, I got hurt in 2008, so I haven't been investing." And my conversation with him was like, "Bebs, it's been a minute now. Like, I need you to get over it." Obviously, fear is an interesting thing. So, how would you say if there's somebody listening here that has their own version of fear around maybe a past experience, or they tried to do an Airbnb, it didn't work out, or they've been trying to get into the boutique hotel space and didn't work out? Walk us through some of your mind space or some of the things that you can attribute that help you kind of cultivate this no excuse consciousness, no fear consciousness that you kind of run on.
I'd love to. This is absolutely my favorite part of my life is my experience with working in transformational coaching. I am an avid meditator and journaler. I am also an avid learner. And I think a lot of people are afraid to learn because that means they have to admit they don't understand something. And so it's really it's a paradox, right? How do you get better? How do you learn more if you don't admit that you don't know? So it's kind of like drop the ego. And I think also drop the attachment to an outcome. I think a lot of times people are so focused on an outcome that it blurs their decision making during the path. I think also, as you know, you have life experiences and you start to realize that suffering is a choice, fear is a choice. None of this is comfortable at times. I mean, at first, that first reveal, I almost like, my heart was racing posting that first picture of the hotel on socials. I just thought, "Oh, now it's real." As if it hadn't been real for 2 years in my brain, right? So I just believe so strongly in community support, learning with others. I'm a huge group, uh, like a community networker, and finding a mentor. And I think the mindset piece is there's so much out there. There's so many good people helping us. I mean, Mike's a big proponent of mindset health, and Stacey St. John's another person that comes to mind. I mean, there's in our industry that are really speaking to this, and it's very important. And I think in any business, in anything that you're going to put something on the line, if you equivocate your success with what happens that one deal or that's an identity crisis, right? You have to be able to stay the course, keep your essence, because things are going to come and go. I mean, it wasn't just the real estate journey that was devastating in '08. I was also going through a personal journey. I had lost my husband, lost a business that was fueling a lot of these real estate endeavors. So, I mean, I made a decision way back, and it was a combination of things, right? Getting therapy and having Reiki and believing in the universal good that I would love again and I would succeed again. And I think that's been really what's, attracted me to so many things to say yes to. And I'm very grateful for that.
I had no idea that this question was gonna get answered this way.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it was super curious, and Mike and I are huge proponents of everything that you talked about. Actually, our next boardroom event, we have our Reiki masters coming to teach and to hold one of the sessions. And I didn't know this about you, but one of the things that I wrote down that you said, and then I'll let Mike speak, but is you gotta stay the course and keep your essence. And I feel like that's such a beautiful things to say to somebody and such a beautiful philosophy to live by. Because again, like you if you let your essence kind of change based on what's going on the outside, I would argue that that's not your essence, right? Like your essence, your way of being needs to remain the same regardless of your outside situations and your outside circumstances. And over time, that essence is going to create your circumstances. So people a lot of the time change their essence due to their circumstances, not understanding that they're doing a disservice to themselves by doing so.
And we're just not raised, right? We're not we're this is that's the hardest part about this is that I would argue that probably majority of entrepreneurs that stay the course and have failed and then succeeded and maybe failed again and succeeded are actually are following this path. But it's not it's only more recently, right, that we're really talking about this more openly and certainly more openly in a business setting, more openly amongst women and men setting different age. I mean, we're really open. I think our society right now is in a place of openness. I hope that that continues. And I think things that you're doing, like with the boardroom, obviously is a huge benefit because we really do need mentors and we do need that kind of support. And to remember at the end of the day, like your business success is not who you are. You're, like you have a full life of many other parts, hopefully. I would think.
I wanna pivot, but before I do, I wanna give some context for why this stuff is important because if you're a listener and you're like, "This sounds great," or maybe this sounds like a bunch of woo-woo stuff, you really think about it, why I focus so much and we talk about it here and there on the podcast, but why this is such a big portion of my life is you continue even when you're starting your journey, if you're dealing with all these mental blocks and limiting beliefs and self-doubt and all these things, it's very challenging to take the action needed to even get your business off the ground, to even have the courage to go meet with this person and take down this 5-bedroom deal and then have the guts to say, you know what, I'm going to bet on us. I bet we could make this work even better as a 10-bedroom, right? That comes from doing the personal work to build that belief in yourself and to create that. As you continue to scale, it's even more important because the energy that you bring, especially in challenging situations, is going to affect your entire team. I have over 30 people on my team across multiple businesses at this point. If I show up stressed out or freaking out about a situation, that is going to multiply across the entire company. So when big issues come up, I have to be the rock and hold that space and that confidence of, hey, we will find a way to get through this no matter what. This is what we do. This is not an issue. We have great people on this team and we will figure this thing out. As opposed to maybe you've had a boss in the past that's just a stress case all the time. Nobody wants to work with that type of person and nobody wants to follow that type of person. So, this is why this work is what I spend a lot of my time on because that's how I'm able to continue to grow and scale and attract great people to my team because they want to be around that energy all the time. So, that's how you take the mindset stuff and make it tangible in business. For those of you that are like, well, how does this even relate to real estate?
I can't agree with you more. The compounding effect of this kind of mindset work. I mean, I have 4 women in the Philippines that have been with me for over 3 years. And the fact that I mean, I have it posted here when we were first operationalizing the hotel. And I mean, it's just very different. And all new software, just learning curve, huge. And I have a post it that my lead VA said, "Don't worry, Miss Kim, we will figure it out." And I thought, that's it, right? Like we will figure it out. And I think that like that just was such a reflection of what I have been saying for 3 plus years to these women, like, "We'll figure it out. We don't know what we're doing exactly, but we'll keep trying. We'll keep learning. We'll figure it out." So I agree with you, Mike. And then I think what's important about that too is it alleviates once you're able to tap into that and express yourself in that way, and it's a resounding kind of magnetism around that kind of thinking. You can actually sit back a little bit, right? And it's not all of a sudden they're kind of bringing that same energy to a problem or solution, right? Like it's not all on you. You really have to pass some torch, like a proper delegation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So how many STRs did you have before you made this mental shift into commercial? I want to hear that real quick. And then what was it that gave you the light bulb of like, you know what, this commercial thing makes more sense to get into hotels?
Yeah, so like I said, we started in early let's see now, 2015, right? And again, didn't have any plans of having our own management company. Had started recognizing, that we could find these homes and do this renovation, increased bedroom headcount. And so we were up to about 3. We were working with a local, vacation rental agency, and they were not using any of the OTAs. And so we thought, why don't we give it a shot? And, if we get some leads, we'll take them and we'll split the difference on the commissions. And all of a sudden realized, obviously, this was the way to go. So that started this like trajectory of, okay, let's buy more, let's keep going. And then working with 1 or 2 other investors along the way, we were up to 14 properties, all over 6 bedrooms, and in 5 regions. And one of the things that decided early on is that everybody would be hosted. So every guest is greeted at some point, like within an hour of check in. And primarily the reason for that was twofold. One, we get eyes on them. Two, we are able to show them all the systems. These homes are huge. You've never seen some of the systems before. It's just a nice way to assimilate. And also we have 24-hour help, right? So that was like a very good, that was like kind of our edge, I would say, during those years. And what we started to see, obviously, as people became more interested in short-term rentals, the value of the properties were going up. And at the same time, we realized we may have to do some considerable renovations to get these properties maybe to another level, like to the next level, right? Like add more amenities, maybe a pickleball court, maybe whatever it is. And we decided to sell into it. And it primarily came out of the concept of I'm already hosting 200 people on a weekend. you know so I already have the systems in place to handle what would be a hotel occupancy. Now that's a little bit larger than what we wound up with, but that was the concept we started recognizing. And I think also, as we all know, with regulations becoming, more and more interesting, I'll say, and kind of just recognizing that we had really hit this really nice trajectory, fell into it, 1031 into some really cool stuff, and recognized this property. We had seen this property actually in 21. And I mean, it was sad, right? It was your typical motel by the highway. I mean, thankfully, it is beautifully surrounded by Mother Nature. We had nothing to do with that. But there's just this sad, you walk in the room and you're just like, oh, I don't want to ever stay here. And I just saw potential. I just said, I mean, I could just put 1 coat of paint on this and it would be absolutely 3,000 times better. So it was a great, great price point in an area which now I'm really become grown to love. It's above Napa, and it's in an area called South Lake County, and they were devastated by a fire in 2015. So this is another thing maybe listeners can take from is there are places that are trying to get their economies back after some devastation. And a lot of people obviously are concerned about like investing in those areas, but what we soon realized is there's really no competition in the area. So this is an area that's considered the 3rd largest wine region, and it is basically the same soil as Napa and Sonoma, right? So you have the same grapes. And what we soon learned was that the wineries actually in Napa and Sonoma were growing grapes up there as well because the land was cheaper. So here we have this incredible spot with nothing but upside. And grow to love it and recognize what an impact a hotel makes on a community and how that affects everyone, right? So now synchronicity happens, and the 9-hole golf course that has been left to, kind of, unfortunately, the owner was unable to care for it, just got purchased, and now that's up and running, and they're opening a Boston, ironically enough, Mike, Boston steakhouse. I've a pub that you can walk to is opening as well. Like, all of a sudden, there's this life being born into the community. There's caterers, there's wedding planners approaching us, and the concept all of a sudden is, you invest. I guess with short-term rentals, I just, in a already identified destination, I didn't see the local impact, right? Even though I knew we were bringing money to the area, obviously, I didn't feel that local impact. This is very different, and it's remarkable, and I'm really excited about it because it makes me excited. Like, it warms my heart that people have somewhere to be proud of, to send their family and friends when they're visiting, and that we are actually going to be attracting people to the area that may not have come because there's no, cool place to stay. And also, with our background in hospitality, we're going to be curating all types of experiences. I have a mobile glass artist who's willing to do like glass blowing for our guests. I have a nature enthusiast that wants to take them to swimming holes. I mean, just kind of trying to make this into a destination with what we know from the short-term rental.
And when I look at this, and for the listeners, go to Fainting Couch, like you're gonna faint, faintingcouch.com, and check out this property. It looks amazing. Like, this feels like a super high-end boutique, like you've been doing this forever. So I can see how you've translated that upscale experience into a very elegant, 18-room boutique that just gives that upscale vibe, and I can see how this can reinvigorate a neighborhood, you know what I mean? Like, this, I don't know, when I first looked at it, I was like, "This is absolutely stunning," and it's very, very well done. Very different style than the stuff that I've done, but it feels great. Like, this is an asset that you completely repositioned, and so I'd love to hear from you now that you've gotten this beauty up and running. What are some of the things that caught you off guard? What are the big differences that you learned going from STRs to boutique hotels?
Well, first off, I just want to speak to the design element. I think I was like so tired of minimalism here in the desert. It's, mid-century modern. It's very popular. We design numbers of homes in that, uh, and I just felt almost like it was my own, like, I need to do something different, right? And so choosing maximalism, which is really just means that there's layers, right? It's textured, it's layered, it's whimsical, it's eclectic. It's not necessarily, hanging monkeys over your nightstands. That's not like, something you would think to use in a motel, right? But as a boutique hotel, you can. And I think that the design, quite frankly, was the easiest part, at least for me, and the most exciting part. What has been very tiring is, I guess let me go back. I thought, well, how hard can this be? You're doing the same thing in 18 bathrooms. They are all the same size, or I should take it back, 12 bathrooms and six, because there's two different sized bathrooms. So, how hard could this be? You're 12 of the same thing. Bam, 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 bam. Not true, right? Not everything's level. Not everything was done correctly to begin with. Pipes get rotted. I mean, on and on. And so as you start to get into the nitty gritty of making something beautiful, you still have to do the work behind the scenes. And it uncovered a number of issues. And so I think having, going back now, I think I would recognize, I mean, going forward, right? I recognize it's not as simple as like, oh, you just choose the design and then, like, yeah, you get a certain crew and they could just bang it out. And so the time essence was much longer than I had anticipated. I had slated it for about a year, and it was closer to 2. So right off the bat, I can say that I will now set up a much different calendar based on reality as opposed to like understanding when something happens, how that one detail affects all the things that are supposed to come after it and to change the calendar.
We preach that a lot, right? I think a lot of the
Right.
things that Mike and I give feedback on in our boardroom calls, it's one, people coming in under budget. Because again, I always would rather you be over budget. And then the concept of like it takes longer. Because also in terms of not just the renovations, but in terms of the legality and the bureaucracy behind the hotel, it's a whole different story. It's a whole different story.
Yeah, planning.
Yeah,
Yeah,
planning, right?
planning,
Everything
planning
happens at that.
department, and yeah,
Yeah.
true.
So as you learned from your experience, you got newer awarenesses, right? Like for me, like that's the main thing that happens, right? As we grow, we understand more about ourselves. Have you seen something that was an area where you weren't as confident? I'm like, oh, I'm not super strong here. That you have actually come out on top, and you're like, oh, actually, I am great as I do these larger projects. I have found this new side of myself where I am pretty fantastic at.
I think working with people, I think one thing is, you really can't be hands off. I think a lot of designers typically like hand it off to a project manager, but that's not how we operated. So I was working with the crew constantly. And I'll be truthful. My husband and I moved into the hotel. Like March, April, we started to stay there more regularly, and by May, we were kind of full time there, and it really was because I had to just crack that whip. I had to be that person with that list, with that punch list over and over and over, and then solving problems. This guy didn't show up. Get this other guy. Find another person. Just being relentless. Like we've got to get this done. I mean, it was definitely hard to watch missing the summer because that is really the height of their season. So that for me was difficult to recognize that sometimes you just can't hope something to happen, right?
So it's definitely an active renovation process where you're there, you're managing the boots on the ground, you're driving. Yes, you have the vision, you have other people building it, but you're driving the accountability and making sure people are hitting deadlines. Now that you've gotten it live from an operations standpoint, what are some of the big differences between STRs and boutique hotels?
Number one is like I said, the booking window. I mean, I'll get a ding on my phone. It's like someone just booked a room. They come, they go. I don't know their name. I don't know anything about them really. As opposed to, I mean, I'm not as involved with the reservations of the single family homes anymore. But when I think about the cadence, it's very different. And, I'm also training a team to work so I have an on-site team, like obviously housekeeping and maintenance, that are not accustomed to the tech that I'm used to and how I run my teams. So I am training my virtual team to work with my on-site team and not use me as the go-between, right? So I'm really trying to step out and let people solve problems. And so at the same time, of course, you want to, it's kind of like a mom with a child. You want to like go help them. And at the same time, I have to kind of be patient and trust that I prefer autonomy over any kind of micromanagement, and I know that that's how I've been able to do so much actually as a result. And so the way you foster autonomy is you have to let people kind of fall. So when I watch that a code isn't working, for instance, right? Like all the software is not talking properly and I'm actually on site, I have to just sit in the room and not do anything. When all I want to do is like rush out and greet the guests and have the guests go in their room and have a great time. I have to allow that process to unfold. So that's been an interesting one, but I know that I find that that's what's brought success is really allowing people to find their own. It's important obviously to have like your playbook and we're writing SOPs on the fly right now, right? Like, the other day there was I forget that one of the I guess a credit card. He wanted to extend his stay and somehow whatever happened, it didn't go through, right? The second time. And so it was he had to like create a whole new reservation. I thought that seems crazy. You should be able to extend, no problem. I thought, you know what? let the people who have to handle this get the information. Like, don't go be momming them about it and try to find out. So I'm intrigued right now by the not only the cadence of the people coming and going, but also the fact that our SOPs are changing, like, and adding. I mean, we're just adding like 2 or 3 a day as we go. And the good news, you guys, is that despite it being the end of summer, we've had a lot of guests. So that's exciting.
Mm.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
So,
excited.
what real quickie, I'll kick it back to you. I just wanna hit a couple more mechanical questions here. So, what does your tech stack look like for your boutique hotels? Is it different from your STRs?
It is. We're working with cloud beds and Whistle, as opposed to I use Guesty for the short-term rentals. But Slack is still our main communication tool. And now both actually we use their tasks and tickets, for maintenance and housekeeping and such, and checklists and stuff like that. So that was good that at one point I was using Breezeway as well. But now it seems that this is more, encompassing. And yeah, I mean, we actually have taken down our tech stack quite a bit. We do use MMSTR, which is what I feel is kind of my ability to supervise what's going on between my virtual team and the guests. And so I can really kind of see if something's getting a little sticky, right? Or something's like really having a problem. And so I am able, and then we've always had that. I've been using some version of a supervisory text app where the guests think they're texting the host only, but it's really our whole team is able to, at any point, offer advice to the other team member if needed, who knows the answer or what video to go look for as to how to, whatever, light the fire pit, things like that. So we've been, you know, really use the tools early on to navigate all of the things that go on.
So the question that I had for you, staying on the mechanical side of things, which is something that you shared with me, where you and I were chatting, is I know you were surprised by how difficult it was to get online on some of the OTAs. So talk us about that, because I think that's something that, like, we're spoiled when it comes to vacation rentals, that people don't understand making the jump, because Airbnb makes it super easy for us to go live, right? And so I would love for you to touch, first of all, share your experience when it comes to, like, how it was, and then maybe some of your hacks for your next hotel, and being like, okay, the next time we're gonna do this, this, and this instead of what we did,
So, I guess
because you were surprised. I
yeah, to
remember
put
that
a
much.
frame on it, what are the best OTAs for your hotels, and what were some of the challenges getting on those OTAs? Because that's a great point.
Booking.com and Expedia seem to be the ones leading. I think Expedia a little bit has the edge at this point. We have incredible organic traffic right now to our website, and I just think it's because we have had some really great influential friends in San Francisco area sharing. So there's been a lot of kind of, we're very close to Harbin Hot Springs, which is a natural soaking spring place. It's pretty well known in the area, and so a lot of people come up from the Bay and go to this hot springs, and they now have a place to come and stay so they can go back the next day. So there's all of a sudden there's all this. I was surprised to see that so many people were finding us by putting in the fainting couch. As far as our biggest challenge, though, you guys, I had no idea this would be a thing. It took us about 7 weeks to get onto Google, and I don't. And until we were verified on Google, we had 0 coming through Booking and Expedia,
Yeah, because I gotta send you that mailer, and you gotta wait for that and all that jazz. Yeah.
and that didn't even happen. We didn't, because there's no mailbox at the actual property, and they wouldn't send it to a PO box. I mean, the details are laborious. I, was verified twice by video call. I mean, I spent 11 hours 1 week just dealing with Google, Expedia, and Booking, because not only was it Google not verifying us, Expedia sent us a contract that we never received and kept telling us it's expired. I'm like, okay, fine, send me another one. And they said, no, we can't because your account's already open. I mean, this went on, right? And then with booking, they were having a glitch. You'd get all the way to the payment processor. You go to pay, and it would just the circle of death, right? And so like this was happening on all three. And I was like, this is what okay, what is the lesson? What am I, patience? Like what am I supposed to do here? And I'm not sure what the lesson is other than to highlight it is not as simple as you think, and maybe do it a little bit earlier than you need it. The Google My Business was outrageous. I mean, I had so many different teams working on it. I could not believe actually that they could actually have that impact on your business. That was a little scary actually. That was a sense of like, what if they didn't verify me? Like, is that a thing? You know?
One of the main things I spoke at Blake Daly's event last weekend, and people were asking me, how do you what's your big, marketing secret? And I'm like, I just push people for Google reviews because when it's very different if you put yourself in the mind of a traveler that is intending to stay at a hotel. When they're gonna go book their trip or plan their trip, they're gonna go to Google and search hotels in Napa Valley or hotels in whatever your city is. And if you're not there, you are drastically going to lose money. Like you need to be there. And if you're not verified, you're definitely not going to be in the top 5. And if you don't have a bunch of good 5-star reviews, you're not going to be in the top 5. So it's really pushing for those Google reviews because whether you're paying to play with them or not, if you're not showing up on Google somehow, you're going to be in trouble.
It was yeah, it was scary. And I mean, we also use StayFi, which now I'm starting to see that working, right? Pushing the reviews through them. So that's good. But until we were verified, we just didn't exist. It was like we did not exist. It felt it was ominous. You couldn't find us anywhere. So anyway. So yeah, I would start the process earlier, I guess. I took it for granted. And I think by the time I had established purveyors of leisure on Google, we had already been in business for a number of years. I forget, maybe it was like a couple of years already. So I just pushed some buttons, and I didn't notice that it was a bigger deal. That was like before live video call, and I don't know, all these other things. So learning, learning, learning.
I
Love it.
love it. Want to be respectful of your time. So for the people that want to come and visit, I love Napa. I love all the area. And again, I tend to not be a minimalist in any way, shape, or form. I'm somebody that is a free spirited thinker that runs extremely bougie. So like for me, your place, once I saw it, right? I saw it and I'm like, oh no, you have to
You
come on
reached
the show.
out. I was so
Yeah, I'm like,
impressed. I
you
was like,
have you
oh.
have to come on the show. Like the moment I saw it, I'm like, yes, like absolutely. So where can people follow you? Where can people find you? How can they come and stay with you?
Sure. Yeah, come and stay. We are on Instagram at the period fainting couch, and on Facebook, the Fainting Couch Hotel. And then if you're interested in looking at any projects I'm involved in, it's Linktree, Purveyors of Leisure, which I have a funny story. Two things I do want to highlight before we go. One thing that we are doing with the boutique hotel is marketing to larger groups for buyouts. So we took the two-bedroom home it's typically your owner operator home, and we made that into like a really cool space, and we can seat 22 people for dinner. So the concept behind that with a chef's kitchen, that we could have smaller weddings, maybe a micro wedding, 50, 60 people, using Chandelier Park, which is a beautiful, trees and chandeliers hanging in the trees. But our background in hosting these large groups really lends itself, right, to this concept. And people are so excited about this idea. Wait a minute, I can have my 50th birthday there and I can have the whole hotel. Yes. And so that's a really exciting piece that I think a little edge, a little something based on our experience with short-term rentals. So I think that that's kind of a fun, and that might lend itself to just this size, right? You couldn't necessarily capture that with a 60, 70 unit hotel. So that's one thing I think for listeners maybe to think about if they're in an area where people would consider renting out for bachelor parties, golf trips, whatever it is, right? That kind of thing. That the possibility of having your own private resort is a intriguing one. And then what was my second thing? Darn. I think I forgot. Oh. I will. I was just wanting to say that because I feel that that's where we're going to actually have a lot of success is in that space, attracting that kind of group that wants the privacy and have, a really nice place to be.
We got to a point where we actually had to stop taking wedding blocks in our peak seasons because it was basically taking every weekend, and we have so many repeat guests that it didn't feel fair to literally wipe out the entire summer for wedding blocks. So we only have certain weekends now that will allow it because if they do have a wedding, we do require like the full buyout. I tested it both ways. Weddings can get loud and disturb other guests, so
Hmm.
it's like you got to take the whole thing or nothing if you want to do
That's
that.
what it
But
seems like.
yeah,
Yeah,
but
that's what it
that's
seems like. But so
amazing.
you were able to get full buyouts on this because your hotel is this the 70 plus
No, not
room
that
that
one, and that
no.
one's still in
Oh,
development, so we got 30 out of the 57 live, but in our first one, our boutique, which is more in line with yours, that one was 13 rooms. We'll be adding some more to that this off season, but,
cool.
that one, again, it's like it's small enough that it's not, I mean, 13 rooms, well, 11 and then 2 townhomes, to your point, it's like, you gotta take the whole thing or nothing.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so
Yeah. No, I'm excited to see how that looks, but that is that thank you for sharing that as well, that there may be a point where you're actually edging out any regular clients that would come for the weekends or whatnot. Yeah. So
well
exciting.
exactly. Well, this has been amazing, and I do wanna get into our last question that we ask all of our guests. I'm gonna reframe it a little bit for you, since now you are in the boutique hotel game, and congrats on that. What is your number one secret to success with boutique hotels?
Be bold. I think you really hit on it, just think to yourself, what are you not seeing around and do something different. Don't be afraid to do that. I think I can say truthfully that it stops the scroll, right? And I don't mean just an Instagram wall, just to be clear. It has to still be a well thought out palette and a well thought out design, but I definitely feel that design is incredibly important in a boutique hotel. And then I'd say, secondly, is curating experiences. We haven't gotten there yet, but that's the goal. The goal is to now take what I've learned and curate those experiences.
Well, I look forward to following your journey and watching you continue to grow your hotel portfolio and watching the fainting couch explode all over social and fill up like crazy for you. So thank you again for being on the show. We appreciate it. For listeners out there, hope you guys enjoyed this one. We'll talk to you soon. Hey, STR Nation, if you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to hit that subscribe button and leave us a review. And in the comments, let us know what topics you want us to cover on upcoming episodes, and we'll make sure to get that in the books for you. And if you really want to learn how to launch, automate, and scale your short-term rental business, if you want to go deeper, then check out our free masterclass at strsecrets.com.